Recently, I bought a 2018 KTM 350 dirt bike. It had a hard life of racing until finally it blew up during a race. The previous owner took it to a shop where they quoted him almost $9,000 for the repair. So I got the bike for $2 grand. Yes, it's a basket case, but we're gonna make it beautiful. My plan is to build a competitive and reliable dirt bike and enter my very first race with it. So far, we've torn everything down, diagnosed what it needs, ordered a ton of parts, and designed a custom color scheme for this thing. We also sent out a ton of parts to get vapor blasted and zinc coated. And now that they're back, they look absolutely amazing. We also opened up a heaping pile of brand new parts for this build. Now that we have all of our brand new parts and our original parts are back from being refinished and ready to go, it's time to build the engine for this bike. I've got all my parts laid out, my KTM OEM service manual, and I'm ready to see what this thing looks like with all of the custom colors, from the Cerakoted engine covers to the yellow zinc bolts. This thing is gonna look sweet. Hopefully we don't run into any problems, but as we all know, that usually never happens. Ow! Motherfucker. All right, let's get to building. You know, guys, I wasn't really sure this day would come, but we finally have all the pieces for the Legend KTM series. I've got the right case half set up right here. Everything is surfaced. We got bearings loaded up. I've got the transmission, the crank, the forks, everything that's going to go into the center cases, ready to rock and roll. And I've even got a physical manual. That's right, a physical manual for KTM. If you guys are in the KTM game, they've stopped giving physical manuals, and that really grinds my gears. I love having a physical manual for some reason. I know, like the PDF one, you can type stuff in and search it real quick, but I don't know. I think that just having that physical manual, I just like to work with that. I'll have this linked in the description below because I was told that these don't exist, and they do have them. So yeah, man, let's just get to building this thing. I'm gonna try to keep everything as organized as possible using these plastic trays for each section of the engine that I'm building. And I've also got all my parts laid out on the bench, kind of in order, and that's gonna be really satisfying to see that slowly disappear as we build this engine. First thing we're gonna do is our center cases. You'll also notice that these cases look brand spanking new. These are the original takeoff cases. I had them sent to Moto Blast. They do vapor blasting there. They come back looking brand spanking new. I would actually consider these better than new because it's a little less porous. The finish lasts a really long time. And you'll also notice all of my hardware has brand new yellow zinc coating. This is the original hardware. James at Moto Blast does the vapor blasting, and he can also zinc coat your bolts. Plus you can get it in different colors and add a little bit of a custom touch to your engine. All right, let's go ahead and put our crank in place. I'm gonna be using this Maxima assembly lube. You can use whatever assembly lube that you prefer. I'm just putting a little bit of lube in here. I've already gone around and put a small amount of lubricant on all of my bearings to begin with. But you just wanna make sure that you're not putting this stuff in dry. Now we're gonna drop our crank in place. I had mine rebuilt by Power Sports Nation using a brand new rod right from Wassner. The wood boards are necessary here because if you're not using an engine stand or anything, as you drop this down, you need to have some space for the crank to slide through the other end. We're gonna come over here now and mesh our transmission together. Feels good. Usually we can just drop this stuff in place and hold on to these gears so they don't fall off. Oh, there we go. Sometimes you just got to spin it around. Now we're going to put the shift forks in place. Now we're going to put the shift drum in place. Now I'm going to take the pins and just guide them into our shift drum. I'm going to try to do this without making a mess. Just going to line everything up. Before we go any further, we'll roll our crank around, make sure it's good and smooth. Mine feels good and smooth, so I think we're ready to rock and roll. Now we've got 3 different length case bolts. To figure out where they go, it's pretty easy to do. We're gonna go over to the computer and we're gonna go on Scott Power Sports. They've got an OEM parts portal here. And if you go to the engine cases, you can see the side profile of the engine, and they've got different numbers for each of the bolts. So they've got 21, 22, and 23. And if you go over to the parts, you see 21. It says it's an M6 by 55. It's 55 millimeters. The 22 is 65, and the 23 is 70. So I'm going to drop all these in place. Uh-oh, we got a stripped out bolt. Oh, son of a bitch. Stripped. Stripped. Bastard. Oh yeah, that's stripped out all right. Not a problem. We can put a helicoil in there and we should be fine. I'm just gonna block off our oil filter because we don't want to get any metal shavings in there. See how nice this is? We can just move our tray away and we can just come back in with our hero, the Helicoil kit. Not a problem, right? Right. This is a great kit to have on hand, really, for any do-it-yourselfer. You can see here, I got a metric kit. I will have this link in the description below if you guys are interested. I've put quite a few of these helicoils in other engines, and I've had no problems with them. So you can see M6 by 1.0. It comes with the correct size drill bit and a special tap so that you can thread in the steel insert. It's a stainless steel insert, so it'll actually be stronger than the aluminum. And we will go ahead and put it in with this tool here. And then this is a little punch to snap off. There's a little tang on the end. That tang is what the tool grips. If you pop this through, you can see that tang goes in the tool so that you can spin the insert into the case. Then you pull this out and the punch will come through and you just smash this through with a hammer and it'll actually knock that tang right off, and then you just blow it out with some compressed air. Now, if I were a smart person, I'd use a more precise method, but I'm not very smart. So I'm going to go ahead and do this by hand. The key is making this nice and straight. Okay. The best way I found to clean these out is to take a little bit of contact cleaner or carburetor cleaner or something, and you just hold a paper towel over the bolt hole, and we'll just shoot this in here. And it sort of launches out the little metal flakes and stuff. Usually works pretty well. Now I'll come in here with the special tap. I'm going to do this by hand. Again, just making sure it's good and straight. Oh, f me. And this is pretty soft aluminum, but if you're struggling with the tap, it's a good idea to put a little bit of oil on the tool. Okay, that should be plenty deep. That's what she said. Or did she? See those real nice clean threads in there? We'll go ahead and clean this out again. You can see, look at all that shit that came out of there. What a great method, Mike. Thanks. I'm going to take a little bit of compressed air, just give it a good blast. All right. Now we'll take our little helicoil, pop it on like that, with a little bit of red Loctite on it. And this should thread right in. Perfect. Perfect. We're just gonna go in until it's about just like one full turn below the case. Off the excess here. And then you just take this punch and it'll break that tang right off. Okay, and we can either tilt the engine over or let's see, we might just be able to blow that thing out. Oh, I just felt it hit my hand. It definitely came out. Yep, we're good. There we go. Real question is, can it withstand the torque wrench? No problem. I was honestly holding my breath there a little bit. Next is going to go the oil pump gear. This is a critical upgrade depending on what year your bike is. I have the original one right here. This is the takeout. And as you can see, this one failed. These are plastic. Right from the factory, the OEM ones are plastics. You can see this one, the gears, it looks like they just sheared right off. They're known for warping and just failing. There's a couple of the gears we're going to be replacing. I'll show you all of them. This is a KTM part number. If you go ahead and replace this gear and order it brand new OEM, you'll get the steel one, chances are, unless it's a new old stock one of these. But as far as I know, these are totally obsolete. Nobody uses these. It's a great upgrade, a reliable upgrade to swap out all the plastic gears with these steel ones. Now, with that being said, we can resell this one. Definitely reusable. You don't really need these two teeth, and I don't know. This is a discontinued part, so probably worth I would say like $49.98 easily. We're getting close to finishing up this bottom end. It is looking pretty awesome. I'm loving the way that the yellow zinc looks with the blue titanium Cerakote and then the bronze Cerakote. And then, of course, just the vapor blasted cases. I just think it looks really cool. I can't wait to get the cylinder on there and the valve cover. That's going to look really, really good, I think. It's pretty satisfying. You can see the bench is starting to clear out. There's really not much left on here. This is like gaskets and stuff. Like, can we even really count that? So pretty much just like the top end is left here. And then over here on this tray, I have the stator side set up. So we're getting ready to put that on. And we're going to come down to our starter gear and our flywheel. Put that in place. Then we're going to put the starter idler gear in place. There is a gear on the back that's smaller. That's going to face towards our main starter gear. It's going to, let's put a little bit of lube on here. And this is going to slide right onto the case. Just spin it until it locks in place like so. You can see there's a slot in here that's going to line up with the Woodruff key. We're just going to line it on up and slide it into place. You might have to twist it a little bit until you get it lined up. You may have to spin the gear in the back. There we go. And sometimes that helps it seat into that starter clutch. And then we'll run this in place. This gets tightened down to 51.6 pounds of torque. You can hold this with your hand and hit it with an impact, and you'll probably be good to go. If you want to torque it, we're going to use the holding method by the crank. So you're going to make sure that the crank is oriented in this position. So you got the downward stroke on the right side. And we're going to take a steel bar, put it through your crank rod hole, right like that, and that will hold this from going in the clockwise direction. You don't have to worry. These things can take a ton of force. Putting this 51.6 foot-pounds of torque on here isn't going to hurt anything. I'm going to take an extension and put it in the swing arm bolt hole. It's just going to give me a little bit of leverage because this thing is kind of fighting me moving around on the bench. Okay, then we'll just reverse the crank a little bit, pull out your rod, and we're good to go. Now we're going to come around up top. We're going to put the starter in place, and this will pop in place. You might have to shimmy it a little bit, just get that O-ring to pop in there. Then we've got two bolts. These both get a little bit of anti-seize. Now I can put the torque limiter in place. It slides in place like so. You might have to twist it around to get it to mesh up with the gears on your starter, and then again down here for the idler gear. And there we go. Now I'm going to grease up a fresh gasket. The reason I do this is because it has a sealing effect, and also when it comes time to remove the gasket, makes it a lot easier. We've got two dowel pins. There's one at the bottom and one at the top. We're going to hang the gasket right on those dowel pins. Before we put the cover on, we've got a couple of components in here. First thing is this little oil jet. This is a size 60. It's going to go right here. You've got to be really careful with these things. They're soft, made of brass, and they're easy to strip out the little flathead top. Jesus Christ, are you serious? You gotta be kidding me. There's freaking sand in those microscopic threads. I gotta freaking clean them out. You know, from being freaking sandblasted. Oh, balls. I don't have a thread chase this small. It's an M4. So I'm just gonna run a tap in here. I think we'll be okay. I just got to clean these threads out. Probably go ahead and do all of them. I usually do this every time I get stuff back from coating. I just forgot to do this cover. That looks pretty good. Let's see if this damn thing threads in here now. Oh yeah, money. Even goes in with my fingers. Cool, cool, cool. No problem. Actually pretty satisfying to see those clean threads in there. I went around and did all of them. You can see they're nice and shiny in there. And then even on this side, there's a little bolt that goes in here. Make sure all those are good and clean. And I surfaced this too, so we should be good to go. One last thing I want to do though, if you guys remember on the Z400 where the plug goes to access your crank, there was like just a small bit of, you know, sandblasting sand in there, and it caused a major problem getting that plug stuck. So I'm going to take this little wire wheel. I don't have the correct size. I don't have a thread chase or a tap that big, but this will go in here and just clean those threads out. Oh, come on, if this can just have a little bit more torque. I don't want to burn this damn thing out. Shit. Just have to use the good old Milwaukee. Something a little more torque. Okay, that should be good. Those threads look nice and clean. Same thing with this. I'm just gonna snug this down. Now we can go ahead, drop our stator cover in place. Oh, geez. The magnetism there is pretty strong. All right, we're gonna move into the top end. This is a brand new Wassner piston. It is stock specifications. You can see it's a nice billet aluminum piston. Wassner makes excellent pistons, very high quality. Now, no matter what piston you have, it's gonna be pretty much the same procedure. First thing you wanna do is check your ring end gap. This Wassner only utilizes one main ring. So we're gonna place it in the cylinder, just right towards the top, about 1/2 of an inch down from the top of the cylinder. And then to make that nice and flush in the cylinder, we're gonna put the piston in, push it up, and that will make it nice and flush. Now what we're measuring is the little gap in between the piston ring ends. You don't want them to be too tight because as the engine heats up, they will expand and they'll actually butt up against each other and it can cause engine damage. So a typical rule of thumb is 4/1000ths per inch of diameter of your bore. So this bore is right around 3.5 inches. So 3 inches would be 12/1000ths plus another 1/2 inch would be 14/1000ths. So we want to be in the 14/1000ths range. We're going to take a feeler gauge here, and these things fan out, and they've got all different sizes on here. So you want to find the size that you're looking for. And what you're looking for is just a small amount of drag on the feeler gauge. So this one is in spec. It's extremely expensive to build these projects. Without the help of these great companies, I just wouldn't be able to get the job done. Thank you to Bonehead Performance Coatings, Graphics Producer, Motoblast, Partzilla, Power Sports Nation, Rocket Ron Racing, Scott Power Sports, Hermosi, and Wassner High Performance Pistons. Most of these companies I've been using for a long time, and I'm comfortable recommending them to you guys for your own power sports projects. If you're looking for a way to support me and what I do, the best way to do that is by using the companies that support me. All links and applicable promo codes will be linked in the description below. Also remember to give this video a thumbs up if you're enjoying it. All right, let's get back to the video. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and put the piston in place. I've got a little cap filled with the motor oil that I'm gonna be using. I'm gonna put a little bit of lubricant on our wrist pin. Then we'll put the piston over top of our rod, and we're gonna slide the piston pin through the rod like so. And we're just gonna go for it here and see if we can get it in there. This one's pretty tough. I got to get up close and personal with this thing. And it is a good idea to have safety glasses on when you do this because I've actually had these things fly out and hit me right in the freaking eye. Ow! Motherfucker. All right. That one was kind of a pain in the ass, but you just want to make sure that you're completely clipped all the way in the groove. Otherwise, you could have some major problems. Now, believe it or not, according to the service manual, they actually want you to put the piston in the cylinder first and then put the whole assembly down while putting the piston clips on with the cylinder. And I just think that would be not easy. Maybe there's some special tools for it or something. Anyways, well, I'm going to take some of the engine oil that we're using. I'm going to rub it all on the inside of our cylinder. Oh, I almost forgot to remove our rag. And we're going to take that same oil and put it on the skirt of our piston. And then we will slide this gasket over top of our studs and just place it right on our dowel pins. Now I'm going to compress my rings with my fingers and we will slide the cylinder. Oh, shit. Now let's get the cylinder on. We will slide it over our cam chain. If I can. Jesus Christ. Starving. Now we're going to do our cylinder. We'll slide it over our cam chain and our cam chain sliders. This can be a little bit cumbersome. Get it over our studs. And we're going to take our piston rings and compress them by hand. And this is not easy. I think we're good. Give this a couple light taps to get it to seat on those dowel pins. Next thing to go in place is going to be our cylinder head. This is a brand new cylinder head that I got from Scott Powersports. The failure on this particular engine was a faulty oil pump system. As you saw, those gears were messed up and the top end was destroyed. So this is a brand new cylinder head. I've already assembled it. And I did want to mention, you guys saw that I had found stainless steel valves for these things. And I decided to go with the OEM style titanium valves. So these are actually Pro X valves, but they are titanium. And I've got brand new OEM springs in there, so we shouldn't have any issues at all. Some of you guys were saying because these stainless steel valves are heavier than the titanium, you actually need a different spring tension, and I probably would have been floating some valves. So appreciate that, guys. Before we put the cylinder head on, we've got 2 dowels to put in place. Just gonna slide these in place. Then I've got a brand new metal gasket. Slide this over our cam chain. This is gonna go on dry. Get it over top of our studs and whatnot. All right, we're just going to double check, make sure our cylinder head is all clean and good to go. And we're going to put this thing in place, fish our cam chain through, and just line everything up. That went on nice and easy. Almost too easy. In order to put the cams in correctly, we need to get the engine to top dead center. So we can now put a wrench on to the crank and we can turn the engine over. So we're gonna spin the engine around. And if you guys remember, there is a little bolt in the front here. That's gonna show us where top dead center is. This is the bolt right here. Just gonna pop that out of place. That might be kind of difficult to actually show you this in real time because it's really kind of dark in there. So basically, I'm going to be turning the engine over in a counterclockwise fashion and finding top dead center. There is a small slot on your crankshaft, and it will pass that little inspection window right there. And once it's lined up with the inspection window, that's how you know you're at top dead center. I'm actually at top dead center right now, so I'm just going to go ahead and roll the engine so that it's no longer at top dead center. And as we're doing this, we want to take our timing chain and put a little bit of tension on it, because if you don't do that, it's going to bind up on your gears and the engine is not going to turn. So we'll just go ahead and turn the engine over. This is good to do anyways, just to make sure that everything's good in the engine. If it's not turning over smoothly, you know something's not right. Okay, so we're definitely not at top dead center anymore, or if we are, we've gone all the way around. So now let's go ahead and look at our window. So that's the inspection window right there. And as I turn the crank over, you should be able to see it moving in there. And I'll show you what we're looking for. I'm gonna try my best to keep this steady. You can see it. Oh, I think that's it right there, actually. Right, oh, right there. That's perfect. So right there is right on the money, and that's what we're looking for. Now that we're at top dead center, we're going to take that same bolt and we're going to put it back in place. You want to make sure it's the OEM bolt and that it has this little taper at the end. If you're using hardware that's not original, you probably don't want to do this. But that little taper is going to go right into the groove on the crank. It'll only do that, though, if we remove this thick copper washer. That's going to allow it to go in just a little bit further and prevent the crank from turning. And we're just doing this for setting the cams. Otherwise, you want to leave this thick washer in there, because it'll be dragging on the crankshaft and your engine probably won't turn over. This doesn't have to be tight. I'm just kind of snugging it down. Now we're going to put our shims in place. They're going to go underneath these little cam levers. All right, and then we just drop all the Levers back down. I'm gonna grab my timing chain with a magnet. So we'll put with the intake first. And I'm gonna try to do it lined up with that little strike mark again. Set with the cylinder head. It can be a little tedious, especially with the freaking camera. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. You can always adjust it. Now I'll come in with the exhaust camshaft. Fish this in here. Same thing, lining that little strike mark up with the edge of our cylinder head. And I think I got it. That looks pretty good. Now I'm gonna put the cam bridge in place and just gently, it kind of like clips in place. Go easy with it. Then we've got 8 bolts. And then in the middle, we've got this cam chain slider. Just gonna run these in with the impact, not tightening them down. This is just a lot quicker. Now I'm gonna torque these down to 10.3 foot-pounds. We're gonna start in the middle and then work our way outwards. With the bridge tightened down and at top dead center, you can go ahead and check your valve clearances. You just take your feeler gauge and run it under the lobes. Make sure that they're correct. If those clearances are off, if your top of the valves and if your clearance is incorrect, it's no big deal. Can't win. If your clearance is incorrect, it's no big deal. You just got to take the cams off and then take those little shims out that are on top of the valves. And those valves are interchangeable with different heights. And as you adjust the heights of the shims, that will change your clearances. Next thing we're going to put in place is the cam chain tensioner. We're going to go in with the flat side facing inward. And there is an O-ring that goes on here. It's a good idea to put a fresh one in place. We're just going to slide this in like so. And then we've got the pressure plate, and this will just spin into place. Now with this tightened up, we can release the tensioner so that it puts tension on the timing chain. If you take, I'm going to take a little T-handle right here and press in the open hole, and you can see the cam chain moving in there. That's because it's not decompressed. So to decompress that, I'm just going to put force on the tensioner. And that will, if you could hear it there, it actually released. And now if you look in here, when I press in the Allen key, there's no movement at all. And then there's a little cap that goes in place. There is an O-ring on there. You want to make sure you got a fresh O-ring in this. And we'll just thread this in place. And I'm just going to snug this down. It's a good idea now to check, make sure your engine turns over. Next, I'm going to put the exhaust flange in place. The gasket just slides right on the back. Then the flange will slide in place. And then there's 2 M6 bolts, and I've got anti-seize on both of these. Now I can put the timing plug back in. If you don't have an Allen wrench this big, it's no problem. You can take something like this. I believe this is an M10. As long as it has a 14mm head, you can use this to tighten down that timing plug. And this doesn't need to go very tight. Just enough that that O-ring will seal. You don't want to have any oil leaks. That's essentially all this is an oil plug. Okay. Now I'll come around back and put the intake boot in place. And this will literally just clip in place. Then on the inside, we've got a 63mm hose clamp. Just snug that down. And then on the outside, you've got a 58mm. And then on the side here, we've got our thermostat. I'm going to put a fresh O-ring in our little groove. I've got a little bit of anti-seize on this, just so it doesn't get seized. I'll spin this in place. And this, I'm just going to snug down by hand. Then we've got our spark plug tube, and I'm just gently pushing that in place. It kind of snaps in place. The O-rings hold it nice and tight. Next, we have a gasket that goes around our spark plug ring. We'll take a little bit of grease and put it on the gasket.
And that will slide right in place right here. Now we'll come to the little areas where those half moons go in the cylinder head. We'll take a little bit of Yumabond 6B or whatever sealant you prefer and just put a very thin amount in these half moons. Trying not to make a mess here. If you get any on the outside, like right there, and you want to clean it off, I recommend waiting for it to dry and then get it later. Oh man, we're getting close. Now we can pop the cam cover in place. It just drops straight on, like so. And then we've got these 3 special bolts with a shoulder, and there are sealing washers that go underneath and will pop right onto your shoulder bolt, like so. And then just spin these in place. These get tightened down to 5.9 foot-pounds. And last but not least, we'll put in a brand new spark plug. The manual suggests 0.8 millimeters for your gap, or about 31 thousandths. So you just want to go ahead and measure, make sure that you've got the appropriate spark plug gap. I'm going to be putting a little bit of anti-seize on this. Drop her in place, do our best not to drop the spark plug. It does go in there pretty far. All right, this will get tightened down to 8.9 foot-pounds. And with that, my friends, you've built yourselves a KTM 350 XCF engine. Good job. Oh man, you got to admit, this engine turned out absolutely badass, man. Look at this thing. The color combination, it turned out perfect, looking absolutely bougie on the turntable. I got to give a shout out to my buddy Tony over at Scott Power Sports. He showed me these turntables, and it really just adds a little bit of a touch of ridiculousness, but I love it. All of the little details in this engine, I'm just so stoked with the way that it turned out. I could not imagine it looking any better. So cool, man. Even like down to the different textures and some of the aluminum. We have the brand new KTM cylinder head, the re-plated and vapor blasted cylinder, and then the cases are the original cases, vapor blasted by Moto Blast. The covers done by Bonehead Performance, and the yellow zinc. It just looks so cool. Bronze sprocket came from partzilla.com. Man, it just looks awesome. Can't wait to see how this thing performs. And it's gonna look amazing once we get it into that super vibrant yellow frame. And with that, guys, all we have left is D-Day. It's time to lay all the parts out and build this beast. I actually already got started and did the shots with the aerial view shots and everything. I was starting to work on this stuff and I came down with something real nasty, kind of put me out of commission for a little bit, but we're back in business and I'm ready to build this KTM. I am so ready to see what this stuff looks like together. You guys gotta let me know in the comment section below. What do you think of the color scheme of this thing going into the lime yellow or fluorescent yellow? How it's gonna look, man, I just can't wait. So I appreciate all you guys watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up. That helps me out tremendously. And consider subscribing for more content like this. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out. It's time for some pizza.